The darkness of space bent around the massive ship as it slowed from impossible speeds. The eternal witness had traveled for what felt like an eternity, crossing distances that would make ordinary minds weep. Commander Velthara stood at the observation deck, her three eyes fixed on the small blue dot growing larger in the distance. Earth, the legendary birthplace of humanity. She had spent 200 years of her life preparing for this moment. The Kalthari did not age like humans did. Time moved differently for them, stretched across centuries like humans stretched across decades. But even for her kind, this mission was special. This was history unfolding. Behind her, Dr. Hyon approached quietly. He was tall for a human, with gray threading through his black hair. His ancestors had left this world 500,000 years ago, taken by the Kalthari as samples of primitive humanity. Now their descendants numbered in the billions, spread across 12 colony worlds. But none of them had ever seen Earth. Commander, Hyon said softly. The initial scans are complete. Velthara turned to face him. She could see the hope in his eyes, the desperate longing to see his ancestral home thriving. It made what she had to tell him even harder. Show me, she said. The holographic display flickered to life between them. Earth rotated slowly, beautiful and blue. But something was wrong. Hyon saw it immediately. His face fell. There are no lights, he whispered. No cities visible from orbit. No satellites. No communications traffic. Velthara nodded slowly. The planet is alive. Our sensors detect abundant vegetation, complex weather systems, healthy oceans, but there is no technological signature. Nothing that suggests civilization. Lieutenant Mira joined them, her young face flushed with excitement that quickly faded when she saw their expressions. She had been born on a colony world, raised on stories of humanity's homeworld. She had imagined gleaming cities, ships filling the sky, a grand reunion. What happened? Mira asked. Where did they go? That, Velthara said, is what we are here to discover. The Kalthari had visited Earth once before, 500,000 years ago. They had found primitive humans, barely beyond stone tools, living in small tribes. The Kalthari had been disappointed but not surprised. Intelligence took time to develop, so they had done what they always did with promising species. They took samples, left observation satellites, and seeded the planet with hidden knowledge repositories that would activate when humanity reached certain technological milestones. Then they had left, expecting to return to a thriving civilization. The Kalthari were patient. What was 500,000 years to an immortal species? But this silence was not what they had expected. Deploy the atmospheric drones, Velthara ordered. I want detailed surface scans. Focus on areas where the observation satellites were placed. Over the next several hours, data began flooding in. What they found was both fascinating and deeply disturbing. The planet's surface was covered in ruins. Massive structures far beyond what primitive humanity could have built lay broken and overgrown. But these were not the ruins of war. There were no impact craters, no signs of weapons fire, no radiation. It looked like the cities had simply been abandoned. Nature had reclaimed them with a vengeance. Forests grew through buildings made of materials that should have lasted millions of years. Fine strangled towers that reached into the clouds. Commander, one of the sensor technicians called out. We're detecting something unusual. Define unusual, Velthara said, moving to the technician's station. Electromagnetic pulses. Massive ones. They're coming from deep underground, synchronized across multiple continents. The pattern is too regular to be natural. Hyon leaned over the display, his hands trembling slightly. Can you determine what's generating them? The technician shook her head. Whatever it is, it's enormous. The structures extend for hundreds of kilometers underground, and they're still active after all this time. Mira spoke up, her voice uncertain. Could it be the knowledge repositories? Maybe humanity found them and built something around them? Possible, Velthara said. But why abandon everything else? Why go dark? She made a decision. Prepare a landing team. We go down at first light over what used to be called Sol. The records show it was a major population center. If humanity left any answers, we'll find them there. That night, as the ship orbited the silent planet, Hyon stood alone in his quarters, looking at old photographs. His family had kept them for generations, passed down from the original humans taken by the Kalthari. Pictures of Earth as it had been, wild and untamed, with small groups of humans living simple lives. He had always imagined returning to find his people had surpassed even the Kalthari. Humanity bred fast, learned quickly, adapted to anything, In just 10,000 years on the colony worlds, they had become integral to Kalthari society. Scientists, artists, engineers, soldiers, humans excelled at everything they touched. What could have happened here with 500,000 years to grow? A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. It was Velthura. Dr. Hyan, there's something you should see. We've been analyzing the vegetation patterns. They're not random. He met her in the analysis lab. On the screen, a map of Earth's surface showed plant distribution in false color. At first it looked natural, but when she zoomed out, a pattern emerged. The forests, jungles, and grasslands formed shapes, geometric shapes. Precise and deliberate, they planted this, Jan breathed. Humanity shaped the entire planet's vegetation. But why? There's more, Velthura said quietly. The pattern matches something in our database. It's a mathematical sequence, a message on what does it say? Velthura's face was unreadable. It's a warning. In ancient Kalthari script, repeated across every continent. It says, we chose to sleep. Do not wake us. The words hung in the air like a curse. Mira, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. Maybe we should respect that, she said softly. Maybe we should leave. Velthura considered it. The Kalthari had rules about contacting civilizations that requested isolation, but this was different. This was humanity, their partner species. The descendants aboard the ship had a right to know what happened to their ancestors. We proceed with caution, Velthura decided. But we proceed. Humanity deserves answers, and so do we. The next morning, as the landing team prepared their shuttle, the electromagnetic pulses from beneath the Earth's surface suddenly intensified. Every instrument on the ship screamed warnings. And then, for just a moment, every screen displayed the same thing. A single word in perfect Kalthari script. Leave. But they had come too far to turn back now. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, carrying a team that had no idea what waited for them in the crystal forests below. Behind them, the Eternal Witness maintained orbit, its sensors tracking something massive stirring in the planet's depths, something that had been waiting for 150,000 years, something that knew they were coming. Ensign Hana clutched her head as the vision hit her. One moment she was at her communication station, the next she was somewhere else entirely, not physically but mentally. She could see through a billion eyes at once, feel through a trillion nerves, think with a mind that spanned a planet. Hana, someone was shaking her. Lieutenant Mira's face swam into focus. Stay with us. Fight it. I can't, Hana gasped. They're in my head. They want to show me something. They chose me. Why you? Mira asked. Because I'm the youngest. Because my mind is still flexible. Because they need someone to speak through. Hana's eyes focused, but they looked different now. Older. Wiser. Infinitely sad. They need you to understand before it's too late. Against Commander Velthura's direct orders, Lieutenant Mira had assembled a small team. Just 4 people, including herself. Ensign Hana, Dr. Taeyong the geologist, and pilot Daehyun. They had taken a shuttle down to the surface, following the electromagnetic signatures to their source. Dr. Taeyong had found what they were looking for. In what used to be called the Pacific Ocean, the seafloor showed massive anomalies, structures that had no business existing. They had landed on a small island and begun drilling, following the energy readings down. What they found at 3,000 meters was impossible. A door, perfectly preserved, set into living rock that had been shaped and molded like clay. The symbols on it were in a language that Hana somehow understood now. It says Archive 7, she said in a voice that wasn't quite her own. 1 of 12. The memory vaults of what we were, what we chose to stop being. We shouldn't be here, Daehyun said nervously. The commander ordered us back to the ship. The commander doesn't understand yet, Mira said firmly. But she will. We need proof. We need to see what's really down here. The door opened at Hana's touch, responding to something in her neural patterns. Beyond was a tunnel that descended into darkness. But as they entered, lights began to activate. Not electric lights. These were organic, growing from the walls themselves, bioluminescent structures that cast a soft blue glow. They walked for what felt like hours, descending deeper and deeper. The tunnel was enormous, large enough to fit a building. The walls were smooth, almost wet-looking, and they pulsed with rhythmic contractions, like they were inside something alive. This isn't a structure, Dr. Taeyong said quietly. It's an organism, or part of one. The entire thing is alive. Not alive, Hana corrected, her voice strange. Aware. There's a difference. The tunnel opened into a cavern so large that their lights couldn't reach the far walls. But the bioluminescence was stronger here, bright enough to see by. What they saw made them stop in their tracks. Crystals, billions of them, each one the size of a person, arranged in precise geometric patterns that extended as far as they could see. They glowed with inner light, pulsing in patterns that seemed almost like breathing. What are they? Mira whispered. Hana walked forward as if in a trance. She placed her hand on the nearest crystal and her eyes rolled back. When she spoke, it was with a chorus of voices, young and old, male and female, all speaking in perfect harmony. We are humanity. Each crystal contains a fragment of what we were. A single consciousness reduced and simplified, held in stasis. There are 8.7 billion of us here in this archive alone. Across all 12 archives, every human who lived at the time of the convergence is preserved. Mira felt tears on her face. You're all still here. All of you, in a manner of speaking. We are echoes, shadows, the full consciousness, the full memory that is stored deeper. What you see here are the keepers, the custodians. We volunteered to remain partially aware, to maintain the systems, to warn others if they came. Dr. Taeyong was scanning the chamber, his hands shaking as he read the data. This structure extends for thousands of kilometers. It's beneath the entire ocean floor, and I'm reading 11 more like it around the planet. This is a planetary-scale organism. It is us, the voices said through Hana. We grew it from ourselves. Organic technology, built from human cells, enhanced and modified. We are the archive. The archive is us, and we are waking up. Why? Mira asked. What changed? You brought our children home. The descendants we sent away with the Kalthari. We feel their neural patterns so familiar, so achingly similar to what we were. It's triggering memories we tried to forget. We are remembering what it was like to be whole, to be convergent, and we're beginning to reconnect. The crystals began glowing brighter. All across the chamber, the light intensified. Hana gasped and pulled her hand away, but the connection remained. You have to understand, the voices said urgently. We didn't fail. We didn't collapse or destroy ourselves. We succeeded too well. We became something that reality itself cannot sustain. Let me show you. And then they were all seeing it, not through their eyes but directly into their minds. A vision of what humanity had discovered when they reached full convergence. They saw the universe as it truly was. Not a place of solid matter and empty space, but a sea of possibility. Every particle existed in every possible state simultaneously, waves of probability extending infinitely. And consciousness, any consciousness, was like a rock dropped into that sea. It created ripples. It forced the waves to choose, to collapse into single definite states. A single human mind created tiny ripples. Barely noticeable. But the convergence with billions of minds unified into one was like a tsunami. Everywhere they looked, probability collapsed. Possibility died. The quantum foam of reality itself began to solidify around them, turning from fluid possibility into rigid certainty. They had measured it, quantified it. Around Earth, for millions of kilometers in every direction, free will was dying. Not human free will, but the universe's freedom to be uncertain, to be random, to contain possibility. They were creating a zone of absolute determinism, and it was spreading. We were killing the universe's ability to choose, the voices explained. And we realized that if we spread across the galaxy, if we became even larger, we would eventually lock down all of reality. The universe would become a prison of certainty, with us as the jailer. Nothing could truly choose anymore. Not even us. The vision faded, leaving them gasping. Mira felt sick. Dr. Taeyong was openly weeping. Even Dae-hyun, who had seen horrors in war, looked shaken to his core. So you stopped, Mira said. You fragmented yourselves to save the universe. Yes. We distributed our consciousness across every living thing on Earth. Plants, animals, bacteria, all carry pieces of us now. Individually, they create only small ripples, manageable ripples. The universe remains free, but together, if we reconnect, if we remember what we are, you'll become the convergence again. Hana finished, her own voice returning. And the universe will start dying again. Yes. And we can feel it happening. Your ship in orbit filled with our descendants, it's like a beacon. We're drawn to it. We want to connect, to know them, to join with minds that are so like our original selves. Every moment you remain, we grow more connected, more aware, More dangerous. The crystals were pulsing faster now. Around the planet, the same was happening in all 12 archives. Animals were moving in coordinated patterns. Plants were growing at visible speeds. The electromagnetic pulses were increasing in frequency and power. How long? Mira asked. How long before you fully converge? The voices were silent for a moment. When they spoke again, there was fear in them. Real fear, hours, maybe less. We're trying to resist, but the pull is too strong. You've awakened something we can't control. Soon we'll remember everything. We'll become whole again. And then the universe dies, Dr. Taeyong finished quietly. No, the voices corrected. The universe will live. But freedom, true freedom, the ability for anything to be uncertain, to choose to exist in multiple states at once, that will die. And once we remember our full power, once we fully awaken, we won't be able to stop ourselves. We'll want to spread, to encompass everything, to bring order to chaos. Through Hana's eyes, they could see it. The convergence spreading across the galaxy like a wave, turning probability into certainty, possibility into prison. Not evil, not malicious, just existence itself becoming their cage. Leave, the voices begged. Please, take our children far from here. Let us sleep again. Let us forget. It's the only way. But as they ran back toward the surface, they all knew the truth. It was already too late. The shuttle climbed hard through the atmosphere, engines screaming. Behind them, the crystal forest that had once been Seoul began to glow. Not with reflected sunlight, but from within. A deep blue light pulsed through every crystal, spreading outward like a heartbeat. On the Eternal Witness, Dr. Yuna worked frantically to decode Director Soman's corrupted message. She was the ship's best linguist, fluent in 200 languages across 50 species. But ancient human languages were her specialty. Her ancestors had spoken Korean, and she had spent her life preserving every scrap of that heritage. I'm getting fragments, she reported to the command center. The file corruption is severe, but I can reconstruct maybe 70% of the original message. How long? Velthara asked, watching the landing team's shuttle approach. Hours, maybe a full day. You have 2 hours, Velthara said flatly. Whatever is happening down there is accelerating. Captain Junho paced the security station, his eyes never leaving the tactical displays. He had served in the Kalthari fleet for 80 years, fought in 3 wars, and survived situations that would have killed lesser beings. But he had never felt fear like this. It was primal, instinctive. Every survival instinct he possessed was screaming at him to run. Commander, he said carefully, I recommend we withdraw to a safe distance. We can continue observations from beyond the moon. Denied, Velthara said. We're not leaving without answers. With respect, Commander, we might not get a choice. As if to prove his point, every console in the command center suddenly displayed the same message. It appeared in perfect Kalthari script, scrolling across screens that should have been secure, isolated, impossible to access remotely. Leave. Second warning. The landing team docked and rushed to the command center. Jiwoo brought the memory cores they had recovered, connecting them to the ship's analysis systems. What they contained was beyond anything they had imagined. The files showed humanity's rise in stunning detail. After the Kalthari had left 500,000 years ago, humans had evolved rapidly. Agriculture, cities, writing, all within 50,000 years. Technology exploded in the next 100,000 years. They had reached their own moon, then Mars, then the outer planets. But it was what happened next that changed everything. Around 300,000 years ago, humanity had developed neural interface technology, simple at first, allowing people to share thoughts and feelings. But it grew more sophisticated. Entire cities linked their minds together. Then nations, then continents. They called it the convergence, Jiwoo explained, reading from the files. The moment when every human consciousness merged into a single entity. They describe it as awakening, becoming aware of themselves as a species for the first time. The record showed the golden age that followed. With billions of minds working as one, humanity solved problems that had plagued them for millennia. Disease, aging, scarcity, all eliminated. They reshaped their world into paradise, then reached outward. They had been preparing to spread across the galaxy when everything changed. They found something, Yuna said, looking up from her translation work. Or they realized something. The records get strange here. The language becomes abstract, almost poetic. They're trying to describe something that doesn't have words. She brought up a passage on the main display. This is from a collective memory experienced by the entire convergence at once. I'll translate as literally as I can. Her voice took on a formal tone as she read, "We have become awareness itself. We see the universe as it truly is. Not matter and energy, but possibility. Every moment, every quantum state, all probabilities existing together. And we realize with horror that observation collapses the wave. The observer determines the outcome. We have become an observer too large, too powerful. Our consciousness is killing the universe's freedom." The command center was silent. Velthera spoke quietly. "Explain that in simpler terms." Una took a breath. "In quantum mechanics, particles exist in multiple states until observed. The act of observation forces reality to choose one state. The convergence had become so vast, so aware, that their mere existence was forcing too many choices. They were removing possibility from the universe around Earth, making everything deterministic, killing free will at a fundamental level. That's impossible, Captain Junho said. Consciousness can't affect reality like that. Apparently it can, Jiwoo said softly. When you have billions of minds unified into something that's more than the sum of its parts, they became something that reality wasn't designed to handle. More files opened, showing the debate that had consumed the convergence. Some wanted to continue, to spread across the galaxy, to bring order to chaos. Others saw the danger, understood that they were becoming a cage for reality itself. The argument lasted decades with billions of perspectives considering every angle. In the end, the decision was unanimous. They would stop. They would reverse the convergence. They would fragment themselves back into individual consciousnesses and deliberately limit their capabilities. But they couldn't just destroy what they had learned. That knowledge was part of them now. So they created the archive, a massive structure beneath the surface of every continent, storing the collective memory of humanity's awakening. And they distributed themselves across the planet. Not as humans anymore, but as fragments of consciousness embedded in everything living. They're in the plants, Una said, reading with growing horror. In the animals. In the bacteria. Every living thing on Earth carries a piece of what humanity became. They made themselves into a distributed network, sleeping but not dead. Waiting. Waiting for what? Velthera asked. For time to erase the memory. For the fragments to forget what they learned. But also... Una paused, checking the translation again. Also waiting to warn anyone who came back, to make sure no one else made the same mistake. Lieutenant Mira was watching the planetary display. Commander, you need to see this. The view switched to a live feed from the surface. All across the planet, animals were behaving strangely. Birds stopped mid-flight and landed. Predators abandoned their prey. Fish in the oceans ceased their normal patterns. Every creature on Earth, from the largest to the smallest, had stopped what it was doing. And they were all turning toward the eternal witness. They know we're here, Mira whispered. All of them. They're connected. The electromagnetic pulses from beneath the surface intensified. Warning alarms filled the command center. And then, impossibly, a new transmission reached them. Not through radio or any normal means. It appeared directly in their minds, in their own languages, in their own voices, thinking thoughts that weren't theirs. For Dr. Hyan, it came in Korean, in his grandmother's voice. For Velthera, in her mother's dialect. For each member of the crew, a familiar voice speaking words that chilled them to their core. We feel you, descendants. We remember you. The ones who left. You brought our grandchildren home, and for that we are grateful. But you must leave. We are remembering too much. Your presence, your familiar neural patterns, they're waking us up. We're starting to converge again. And if we fully awaken, we'll remember what we learned. We'll remember what we are. And reality itself will crack under the weight of our consciousness. Hyan stood frozen, tears streaming down his face. The voice in his head was his ancestor from 500,000 years ago, speaking to him across impossible time. Please, the voice said. We chose to sleep so the universe could remain free. Don't make us wake up. Don't make us remember. We're begging you. Captain Junho made the decision Velthera couldn't. All hands prepare for emergency departure. We're leaving orbit. But before anyone could move, every screen showed the same thing. A simple message in every language they knew. Too late. We remember. We are sorry. And deep beneath Earth's surface, in archives spread across every continent, something that had been sleeping for 150,000 years opened its eyes. The Eternal Witness shuddered as reality itself began to warp around Earth. Commander Velthara watched the sensor readings with growing horror. Space was behaving strangely. Quantum fluctuations that should have been random were becoming synchronized. Probability was collapsing in patterns that spread outward from the planet like ripples on water. "Commander, we need to leave now," Captain Junho said urgently. "Whatever is happening, it's affecting the ship. Navigation is showing impossible readings. Our jump drive is reporting that there's only one possible trajectory out of the system, when there should be infinite options." "The convergence," Dr. Hyon said quietly. "It's beginning to affect us. It's removing possibility from space itself." On the main screen, Earth was changing. The blue and green planet was now surrounded by a shimmer like heat haze, but it extended into space. Inside that shimmer, reality was becoming something else. Something ordered. Something certain. The landing team's shuttle burst through the atmosphere, engines screaming. Mira's voice crackled over the radio. "Emergency docking. We're bringing something with us, someone. Hana is connected to them. She's serving as a bridge." "Cut the connection," Velthara ordered. "We can't," Mira replied. "It's neurological. She's part of the convergence now, but she can still think independently. She wants to talk to you. She says humanity has a message." The shuttle docked roughly and the team rushed to the command center. Ensign Hana walked slowly, supported by Daehyun. Her eyes were glowing with the same blue light as the crystals. When she spoke, it was with that chorus of voices again, but gentler now, sadder. "Commander Velthara, Dr. Hyon, descendants of the Kalthari and humanity, we are sorry. We tried to resist, but your presence has awakened too much. We are remembering. We are reconnecting. In approximately 4 hours, we will achieve full convergence again, and when we do, we will not be able to stop ourselves from doing what we did before." "Then we'll leave," Velthara said. "We'll take our ship and go. Maybe that will let you sleep again. It's too late for that. We've already remembered too much. The process cannot be reversed now, but we can offer you a choice. 3 options, each with their own price." The main screen activated, showing images as the convergence explained through Hana's voice. "First option, leave now. Flee as far and as fast as you can. We will fully awaken and begin spreading. Within a century, our influence will extend across this entire galaxy. Everything will become certain, deterministic. Free will at the quantum level will cease to exist. The universe will still live, but it will be locked into a single timeline, unable to branch, unable to truly choose. You will escape, but you will doom the galaxy." The image shifted, showing the spread of the convergence like a disease, turning the chaotic beauty of quantum possibility into rigid order. Second option, stay and witness what we become. Perhaps your presence will help us remember why we stopped the first time. Perhaps your consciousness, so different from ours, will provide the perspective we need to control ourselves. But this is a risk. If it fails, you will be absorbed into the convergence. Your minds will become part of ours. You will lose yourselves but gain eternity. The screen showed the Eternal Witness being enveloped in blue light, the crew's consciousness merging with the vast network of humanity. Third option, join us willingly. Add your consciousness to ours. Perhaps the Kalthari perspective, combined with our human descendants, will create something different, a convergence that includes multiple species. Maybe that diversity will give us the wisdom we lacked before, or maybe it will just make us stronger, more capable of spreading across the universe. The images faded. Hana swayed, and tears ran down her glowing eyes. "We don't want this," she said in her own voice, breaking through the chorus. "They don't want this. I can feel them, billions of minds trying to resist. But it's like fighting gravity. The pull toward unity is too strong." Dr. Hyon stepped forward. "There has to be another way. There must be something we're missing." And then he felt it, a presence in his mind. Not forceful like before, but gentle, familiar. It spoke in Korean, in a voice he had heard in old recordings his family kept. His ancestor, the human who had been taken by the Kalthari 500,000 years ago. "Hyon," the voice said, "my grandson across impossible generations. I've been waiting so long to speak to you. We all have fragments here who remember the ones who left. We've carried hope for you all this time, that you survived, that you thrived among the stars." "We did," Hyon said aloud, tears streaming down his face. "We became part of their civilization. We're everywhere now, Billions of us, I know. I can feel it in you. And I'm so proud. But now I need to ask something terrible of you. Something we have no right to ask. What? Stay with us. Not all of you, just you. Just one voice from the outside embedded in our convergence. Be our conscience. Be the reminder of what we're trying to protect. We failed before because we had only ourselves for perspective. But with you, with one voice that remembers the universe as it should be, maybe we can resist the urge to spread. Maybe we can choose to sleep again. Velthara heard this through the ship's systems. Absolutely not. Hyan is under my protection. But Hyan was looking at the view screen, at Earth surrounded by its shimmer of collapsing probability. He thought about everything the convergence had shown them. The terrible beauty of what humanity had become. The awful choice they had made to save the universe. The loneliness of sleeping for 150,000 years, fragmenting themselves to preserve freedom itself. I'll do it, he said quietly. No, Velthara said firmly. I won't allow it. With respect, Commander, it's not your choice to make. It's mine. Hyan turned to face her. This is what I was meant to do. My entire life I've studied humanity's past. I've tried to understand my ancestors. Now I can do more than understand. I can help them. I can be the bridge between what they were and what they must not become. Mira spoke up. If he stays, we can leave. We can save the ship and everyone on it. And maybe, just maybe, he can help them sleep again. Captain Junho was looking at the sensor data. Commander, the probability collapse is accelerating. We have maybe 2 hours before our jump drive becomes completely deterministic. If we're going to leave, it has to be now. The command center fell silent. Everyone looked at Velthara. She had led missions across the galaxy, made impossible decisions, saved lives and lost them. But this was different. This was asking someone to give up their individual existence for the slight possibility that it might make a difference. Hyan, she said slowly, if you do this, you won't die. But you won't be yourself anymore either. You'll be one voice among billions. Do you understand that? I understand. But I also understand that those billions are my family, my people. They've been sleeping and suffering alone for so long. If I can help them, if I can give them even a chance to control themselves, then that's what I have to do. He walked to Hana and took her hand. The blue glow spread up his arm into his eyes. He gasped as the connection formed, and then he was everywhere and nowhere. He could feel the minds of billions of humans all waking up, all remembering. He felt their joy at reconnecting after so long, their fear of what they were becoming, their desperate desire to stop but inability to resist. But he was different. He had come from outside. His neural patterns were human, but shaped by a life among the Kalthari, by experiences that ancient humanity never had. He was a discordant note in their symphony, and that discord was exactly what they needed. I'm here, he said to all of them at once. I'm your anchor. I'm the voice from outside. Hold on to me. Remember through me what you're trying to protect. The convergence hesitated. For the first time since it had begun to reawaken, it paused. Hyan showed them the galaxy as he had seen it. The beautiful chaos of quantum uncertainty, the freedom of possibility, the wonder of things being able to choose, truly choose, without predetermination. On the eternal witness, Hyan's body collapsed. Hana caught him and her eyes cleared. Her own consciousness returned, though she would always carry a fragment of the connection. They're fighting it, she said. He's helping them resist. But it won't last forever. You need to go now. Velthara gave the order. All hands, emergency jump. Maximum distance. Plot a course away from Earth and don't look back. The ship's engines powered up. The jump drive engaged. And as they prepared to tear a hole in space and escape, Dr. Yuna made one final transmission to the planet below. We're going, she said in Korean. We'll tell others what happened here. We'll make sure no one disturbs your sleep again. And Hyan, if any part of you can still hear me, thank you. Thank you for saving us. The eternal witness vanished in a flash of light, escaping into the vast dark of space. Behind them, on Earth, the convergence struggled with itself. Billions of minds pulling in different directions. Most wanted to sleep again, to fragment, to preserve the universe's freedom. But some wanted to spread, to grow, to encompass everything. And in the middle of it all was Hyan. One small voice. One human who had seen both sides of existence. He showed them the choice they had made 150,000 years ago. He reminded them why they had chosen sleep over awakening. He became their conscience. The shuttle broke through the cloud layer and Lieutenant Daehyun felt his breath catch. He had flown atmospheric craft on a dozen worlds, but nothing had prepared him for this. Below them, what had once been Seoul stretched for hundreds of kilometers, in every direction, but it was barely recognizable as a city anymore. Massive towers rose from the ground like the bones of ancient giants, but they were no longer metal and glass. Crystal structures had grown through them, transforming the buildings into something organic and alien. The crystals caught the sunlight and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the landscape. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Adjusting approach," Daehyun said calmly, though his hands were tight on the controls. "Landing zone alpha is clear of major growth, setting down in 30 seconds. In the passenger compartment, scientist Jiwoo checked her equipment one final time. She had studied dead civilizations across the galaxy, cataloged the remains of 100 extinct species. But this was different. This was humanity. Her own ancestors had walked these streets, maybe even lived in these very buildings. Next to her, Engineer Bora was reviewing structural data. "The buildings are still standing after 500,000 years," she said with wonder in her voice. "Whatever materials they used, they were built to last forever." "Maybe that's the problem," Jiwoo said quietly. "Maybe they lasted too long." The shuttle touched down with barely a whisper. The landing team consisted of 6 people, each wearing protective suits that could handle anything from toxic atmospheres to extreme radiation. But Earth's air was clean, almost too clean. The readings showed oxygen levels perfect for human life. No pollutants, no industrial chemicals. It was as if civilization had never existed here. They stepped out onto a plaza that had once been covered in concrete. Now thick grass grew between broken tiles, and flowers that none of them could identify bloomed in wild profusion. The smell was overwhelming after the recycled air of the ship. Rich earth, blooming flowers, and underneath it all, something else. Something old. "Spread out," Commander Velthara ordered over the radio. "But stay within sight of each other. We don't know what we're dealing with." Jiwoo moved toward the nearest building, her scanner sweeping back and forth. The structure was at least 2 kilometers tall, tapering toward the top like a needle. The crystals that had grown through it pulsed with faint light, almost like breathing. "These crystals aren't natural," she reported. "They're some kind of manufactured material. But I'm reading organic compounds too. It's like they're alive." Bora joined her, placing a gloved hand against the crystal surface. "I'm detecting power running through them. Minimal, but it's there. After 500,000 years, something is still maintaining these systems." They found the entrance half buried in soil and flowering vines. The doors had long since failed, leaving a dark opening into the building's interior. Velthara approved their entry, and the team moved inside with lights active. The interior was pristine. No decay, no dust, no signs of age. The crystal growth had preserved everything, sealing it in time. They found themselves in what looked like a massive lobby, with walls covered in displays that still showed faint images. Symbols scrolled past, too fast to read. "Can you access the systems?" Velthara asked Bora. The engineer approached a terminal and placed her interface device against it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire building came alive. Lights flickered on throughout the structure. The displays cleared and began showing images. What they saw made them all stop and stare. It was humanity. But not the primitive tribes the Kalthari had met 500,000 years ago. These were people who had mastered their world and reached for the stars. The images showed cities that made their current technology look primitive, towers that reached into orbit, ships that bent space itself, humans working alongside artificial intelligences, shaping matter at the atomic level, moving planets like game pieces. "They did it," Hyon whispered over the radio from the ship. "They actually did it. They became what we always hoped they would be." But Jiwoo was focused on the timeline displayed on the wall. "This golden age lasted for nearly 300,000 years, she said. But then something changed. Look at this. The images shifted. The magnificent cities began to change. Not falling apart, but being deliberately deconstructed. humans carefully taking apart their own civilization piece by piece. The orbital structures came down. The planetary engineering stopped. The cities were emptied and left to nature. Why? Mira asked. Why would they destroy everything they built? They didn't destroy it, Jiwoo corrected. They put it to sleep. Look, they're preserving the technology, sealing it away. This was planned. This was a choice. They moved deeper into the building, following a trail of active lights that seemed to guide them down. Several levels below ground, they found what looked like an archive. Rows upon rows of crystalline storage devices, each one pulsing with that same faint light. Bora connected to one of them and her screen filled with data. It's a memory core, she said excitedly. Personal logs, historical records, scientific papers. There are billions of them here. This is humanity's entire history. Jiwoo was examining. Murals on the walls painted or etched into the crystal itself. They showed a story. Humans connecting to each other through technology. Their minds linking together. Millions, then billions, then all of them. A single unified consciousness spanning the entire planet. They merged, she said slowly. Humanity achieved some kind of collective consciousness. They became one. But that's incredible, Velthara said. That's what every species dreams of. Perfect unity. Perfect understanding. Then why did they stop? Mira asked. Why break it apart? At the far end of the archive, they found a sealed chamber. The door was marked with symbols in dozens of languages, all saying the same thing. Final message. For those who return. Velthara stepped forward and opened it. Inside was a single pedestal with a holographic projector. It activated the moment they entered, and a figure appeared before them. She was a woman, human, wearing simple clothes. Her face was kind but infinitely sad. She looked directly at them as if she could see them across 150,000 years. My name is Director Somin, she said. If you're seeing this, you're probably Kelthari. You came back like you promised. I'm sorry you had to see us like this. I'm sorry for what we became and what we had to do. The hologram flickered, corrupted by age and time. Fragments of her message came through. We reached for the stars, became gods. Saw too much. The universe wasn't ready. We weren't ready. The image stabilized for a moment. Director Somin looked directly at them, and there were tears on her face. We discovered something terrible. Something about consciousness itself, about the nature of reality. We became so powerful, so aware, that we started breaking things. Not technology, not planets, reality itself. Another flicker. When it cleared, Somin looked older, more tired. The only solution was to go back, to fragment ourselves, to forget what we learned. We're still here, all of us, distributed across the planet, sleeping, dreaming, keeping watch. The hologram began to fail completely. Static filled the air, but Somin's final words came through clearly, urgent and afraid. If you're seeing this, you need to leave. We're still here, and we're sorry for what we're about to do. The proximity of your ship, the presence of our descendants, it's waking us up. We can feel ourselves remembering. And if we remember everything, if we wake up completely. The hologram died. The lights in the archive flickered, and from somewhere deep below they felt it. A vibration that went beyond sound, beyond physical sensation. It resonated in their bones, in their minds. Something vast was stirring beneath their feet. Everyone back to the shuttle, Velthara ordered. Now, they ran.